As a Ukrainian Australian, I've been really heartened to see the global support of Ukraine these past couple of weeks since Russia's invasion. But really, it's only been the EU who's taken concrete steps to address the refugee crisis. I've taken several calls from family and friends in Ukraine who have asked me how to seek safety in Australia. But knowing Australia's refugee policies and practices, I find myself warning them about the risks of potentially joining Australia's refugee queue. I'm wondering, is there an opportunity here to take this global solidarity, the current solidarity that we have with Ukraine, and use that to improve Australia's refugee policy and make it work better for everybody who needs it?
Flex?
I feel like Australia's in denial about their stance on refugees and asylum seekers, and I think that while it may feel like now's a great opportunity for it, I mean, it was a great opportunity years and years ago, and what happened then? I think that in times like this, we can apply pressure, but is it going to be just another PR angle? You know, another way for Australia to be like, we did the right thing at the right time, like you asked, right? And then forget everybody else who is currently impacted and will still not get the support that they need. I mean, people have said it time and time again. Australia's policy on refugees is barbaric. It's been said 1,000 times before. So I am really interested to see if something would happen. I remain hopeful, but I think that at times like this, we kind of need to. What is the appropriate way to say we need to let? When someone shows you who they are, you need to believe them. In this instance, I think Australia has shown us time and time again how they feel about people seeking asylum on our shores.
Najeeba, you've experienced this, and I'm sure that when you look at what's happening in Ukraine and you see experiences that you've been through, so what would you say? Tanya's talking about people she's in touch with who are looking to come to Australia. What would you say to them?
I mean, to be honest, first and more importantly, every time I look into the media and I see those horrifying, incidents of people wanting to flee, escape, fleeing and escaping violence and horror. It really takes me back to my own time as a young girl back in Afghanistan and how difficult it was for me and my family to escape, that decades of war and injustice and inhumanity. And what a shame that today the history is repeating itself today, We're just talking about the Ukraine crisis, and exactly the same thing is happening in my own country, The gender segregation back in the 1990s is playing a huge role right now for a lot of women being imprisoned of their own gender, for a lot of women being actually having denied access to the most basic human rights. I mean, what I would actually say to all of this crisis, especially to the refugee issue, which has been a long outstanding issue in Australia and has been played out throughout the politics, especially when we are close to the election, it turns out to be something else. At least, in my case, I came to Australia by boat back in the year of 2000 because that was the only route available. And now if we compare this to the context of Ukraine, are we going to go and ask the refugees in Ukraine that you're not allowed to go by land, you have to get a plane to get out of Ukraine? I don't think that's what we expect from the world. We definitely, as a signatory to the UN Convention, Australia is a signatory to the UN Convention. It has its own obligation, it has its own responsibility, and they need to show their part. We need to welcome Ukrainian refugees into this land. Whether it is, again, the Ukrainian refugees or the Afghan refugees, we have a role to play, and we're obligated to provide protection to those that are in huge need right now. But unfortunately, that is not the case in Australia because we tend to play with our politics. Just with the crisis of Afghanistan, Scott Morrison announced 3,000 intake. Let's compare this with the other world. Canada introduced 40,000. That's a shame that as a big country like this, full and rich, we are only willing to provide protection to 3,000. And lastly, I think I want everyone in this room, because every time when I look at the Ukraine situation and also the Afghanistan situation, any other refugees in Bangladesh, in Thai Burma border, in any other context, I always ask myself, if we put the Ukrainian refugees in detention center today, how would everyone in the room react to that? And right now in Australia, we have hundreds of asylum seekers that are in detention centers.
Claire, can I bring you in on this? Because I know in Quillette you often deal with these issues and deal with the politics of these issues. And, we've heard criticism of Australia's stance tonight, but Australia, of course, also points to the fact that it takes in a lot of refugee resettlement from countries. People have gone to other countries and then being resettled to Australia. we've seen around the world, haven't we, that the refugee issue, immigration issue more broadly, has become a real flashpoint, feeding into a political populism. We've seen across Europe, we've seen across the United States, we've seen barbed wire going back up around the borders of countries like Hungary. Talk to getting this right in a world where we have conflict, we have more movement of people, we have highly contested politics of immigration, and managing that mix when we know that there can be a blowback against that as well.
Yeah, it's a vexed issue, and I would just hesitate on it a little bit because this conflict is different. We're dealing with Russia has 6,000 nuclear weapons, and they're invading Ukraine, and they could keep marching into Eastern Europe. It's a conflict that we haven't seen in the world for 70 years. We haven't seen a conflict like this since World War II. And it's a tectonic shift in global affairs. I think we need to keep in mind that we're going to have a massive refugee and migration issue, not just from Ukraine, but also from Russia. People are going to want to escape Russia. They are victims too in all of this. Their economy will implode sooner or later. And I think Australians do have to be generous. We are a rich country and we do have a lot of space. And so we do need to be generous. And I think we're moving into uncertain times. So we really do have to open up and try and attract people. I mean, we stopped immigration for 2 years, so I think we can up the intake a little bit now.